2012, day 1, question 2. Right, simplify fully. So we're looking for like terms. There's a 10x squared y here and a minus 5x squared y. Now that's an xy squared, so it's actually different to the other two terms. 10 minus 5 is 5 x squared y plus 8 xy squared. They're unlike terms there, so we'll have to leave them like that. Factorise fully and write in its simplest form. Now just check that's exactly the same as above. It is. So we can use it in that form, simplified, and now we need to factorise. So both terms have an x, both terms have a y, leaving me with 5x plus 8y. So just check 5x squared y plus 8x y squared. Expand and simplify. C part 1. Simplify. Now we're going to need a common denominator here. We're subtracting. That's a trap set there waiting to go off. We'll use 10. Changing fifths to tenths, we need to times by 2. If you do that to the denominator, you need to do it to the numerator. We're actually timesing by 1 there, so it keeps the fraction the same. It becomes 2x over 10 minus, timesing by 5. Really important here that we put brackets in. Timesing by 5. Now I've got 2x minus 10x is minus 8x. And I've got minus 5, which becomes plus 5. Really important that using the brackets we can see that negative times the negative should make a positive on the end there. It's easy to miss. No further simplifying because we've got that plus in there. Part 2. Now I recognise that the left hand side here is the same as above. So assuming we haven't made a mistake in the above, that's what we need to solve. Lots of ways we could do it. We might begin by timesing by 10 over 1 both sides. 10s will cancel. 5s into that go once, 5s into that go 2. Left with minus 6x. You might call it cross multiplying, would work the same. Right, x is on one side. This is the smaller one, so I'm going to eliminate it from this side. Negative 6 plus 8 is 2. 2.5, or you can keep it as 5 over 2. At this stage here, you might have chosen to add the 6x. And then minus the 5. Then you need to divide by negative 2, and when you do that you need to reverse the sign, because dividing by a negative or multiplying by a negative you need to reverse the sign. 2 negatives cancel out. 2.5x less than or equal to. Similarly on the other side. Part D, volume of a cylinder. V equals pi times the radius squared times the height. So we're asked to rearrange so we get R equals. Changing the subject to the formula. Right. First thing I would do is divide by the pi and the h. What you do to one side of an equation, you have to do to the other. It's all multiplied, so we can cancel. And now we're square rooting both sides. So R will equal the square root of V over pi h. Right, part 2. length L. L equals the square root of 8 squared plus 2r squared, 2r being that 2r there and 8. So clearly this person has used Pythagoras' theorem to find an expression for capital L. Right, we have a larger can but the same height. So if it's the same height, it's still going to be 8, but it's 3 times as long. Radius of the larger can. Well, if that's r, then of course it will be 2r for the diameter in terms of little r. So let's try Pythagoras' theorem for this bigger one. I can see that 3l is going to be the square root of 8 squared plus 2r squared, which would mean, now that's 3l and this is l over here. So if I was to go 3 times this one, 3l here would equal 3 times the square root 64 plus 2r all squared over here. And then if 3l equals that and 3l equals that, we can equate those two sides. In other words, 3 times is the same as this is quite difficult. Eliminating a square root, we could choose to square that side and that side. Now 3 squared is 9, and when I square a square root, you actually cancel that out, leaving you with what's underneath it. We might also square the 2r at the same time, giving me 4r squared. Squaring a square root will leave me with what's underneath it, and I've just squared the 2r there. Right, we want an expression for capital R. So if we expand this side now, we need 64 times 9. You could do 64 times 10, which is 640, and minus 64 from that. Which is going to be 576, and you can check that you can get that answer. Plus 4 nines are 36. Right, we're trying to get capital R squared. So the next best thing to do would be to minus the 64. Divide by 4. Right, dividing by 4 over here, I actually notice that that top line, I'm sure, has a common factor of 4 in it. 4s into 512 will go nicely. 4s into that. One, 2, 8. Now we can cancel out the 4. And lastly, capital R is going to be the square root of 128 plus 9r squared. So quite difficult. You could have another wee look through that. There are other ways to do it, I'm sure. But we have an expression for the radius of the larger can in terms of the small one.